My name is Elena. I'm 42, married for the second time. No children, no dogs barking at the window when I come home. Just a house on the edge of a lake in Vermont, where I work remotely, drink too much tea, and wait for my husband to return from his consulting trips. This week, he's in Chicago. I've stopped asking when he'll be back. The answer is always vague, always soon. That evening, I made lentil soup. Again, lit the beeswax candle on the dining table, played a soft indie folk playlist, the same routine I've followed for nearly 3 years. At 8:23 p.m., the doorbell rang. It startled me. No one ever comes here uninvited. I peeked through the side window and froze. It was Noah. He stood with one hand in his jacket pocket, a small duffel bag at his feet, his damp hair clinging to his forehead from the light drizzle outside. My husband's nephew, 24. He had visited us a few times when his college dorm shut down during lockdown. "Elena," he said, his voice softer than I remembered. "Sorry, I was driving from Boston. My car started smoking. I remembered this was the closest place. Would it be okay if I just crash here tonight?" I hesitated not because I didn't want him here, but because I did, and I didn't understand why. "Of course," I said, stepping aside. He walked in like he remembered the place, shrugged off his jacket, smelled of eucalyptus and rain. I handed him a towel and poured him a cup of mint tea. "You still make this," he said with a small smile. I remembered that scent. "I didn't think you would," I replied. Something inside me loosened. We sat in the living room, the fireplace gently flickering, just talking about nothing, and yet everything. He noticed the same things my husband never did, that I had started wearing my hair differently, that the books on the shelf had changed, that the orchid by the window was still alive barely, but hanging on. When he reached for the tea, his fingers brushed mine. I flinched not because it shocked me, but because it didn't. We kept our distance, physically, but emotionally. Something between us shifted in those quiet, seemingly innocent conversations. At 11:17 p.m., I said I was going to bed. I laid out a pillow and blanket on the couch, just as a host should. "Good night," I said. "Good night," he replied, and for the briefest second, neither of us looked away. I woke up at 4 a.m., before the alarm, before the birds, before my own thoughts had time to form. The sky was still a blue-gray wash over the lake, the kind of light that made everything look soft and undecided. I slipped on a cardigan, crept down the stairs barefoot, and found Noah still asleep on the couch, one arm draped over his eyes, the blanket half off. He looked peaceful, unworried, like someone who didn't carry the weight of unspoken things, at least not yet. I poured coffee, quietly grinding the beans the way I always did. The smell filled the kitchen. Then I heard movement footsteps, the shuffle of someone trying not to be heard but secretly wanting to be. Noah stood in the doorway, hair messy, wearing the same dark t-shirt from last night. His voice still had that sleepy husk. "You're always up early?" "It's the only time I don't have to answer to anyone," I said with a half smile, pouring him a second cup. We sat across from each other at the kitchen island, the ceramic mugs warm in our hands. We didn't say much, but the silence was louder than words. "You still play music in the mornings," he said, nodding toward the old record player in the corner. I nodded. "Same playlist. Every time." He smiled. "It's comforting. Like this place never moves forward." I laughed, but something about that felt too close to true. Maybe that's the problem. We moved to the porch. The lake shimmered faintly, thin fog gliding low over the surface. Noah leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and I watched his profile, strong jaw, thoughtful eyes. He looked less like a nephew and more like a man who had learned to observe the world instead of trying to fix it. "Did you sleep okay?" I asked. He nodded, then hesitated. "I had a weird dream, though." "Oh?" I sipped my coffee. "I was sitting here, same as now, And someone reached over and held my hand. I froze. My fingers tightened slightly around the mug. I wanted to ask who, but I already knew. And what happened? I asked quietly. They didn't let go. We sat in silence. The air felt too still, too thin. Noah, I started, but I didn't finish. He looked at me. Really looked like he saw through the roles we were supposed to play. Not aunt, not family, not married woman, just me. And I hated how much I wanted to be seen like that. A few minutes passed. Then he reached out slowly, without pressure, and set his hand next to mine on the bench. Not touching, just near enough. If you want me to go, he said, I will. I shook my head. It's not about wanting. Then what is it? It's about knowing, I whispered. Knowing that whatever this is, it can't become something we pretend it isn't. Noah nodded, gaze steady. But we're not pretending right now. I didn't answer, because he was right, and that terrified me. That afternoon, he helped me repot a dying plant. We didn't talk about the morning, but the space between us was different. Not crossed, but no longer empty. I caught myself watching him move the way his hands carefully loosened the roots, the way he stood up and wiped soil from his palms like he belonged here. He didn't belong here, but neither did I. Not anymore. That night, we had soup again. This time he cooked. We sat at the same table I'd sat at alone for years. He didn't touch me, didn't try, but the conversation hung heavier now, like we both knew we were standing on a line and hadn't yet decided which side we'd fall on. After dinner, as we cleared the dishes, he said quietly, "Have you ever felt like something was both completely wrong and completely right at the same time?" I didn't answer right away. I just met his eyes. And I knew we were both asking the same thing. It was nearly midnight. The house was silent, except for the occasional creak of the old wood floors shifting in the cool air. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my body still, but my thoughts running in loops, not frantic, just wide awake. A storm had started outside, soft rain pattering against the windows, the occasional low rumble of thunder in the distance. I got up. Noah was still awake too, sitting on the couch with a book he clearly wasn't reading, one hand absent-mindedly rubbing the back of his neck. "You couldn't sleep either?" I asked, standing in the archway between us. He looked up. "Didn't want to." I didn't ask why. I didn't need to. I walked over and sat on the other end of the couch, careful to leave enough space between us. He didn't shift closer. He didn't have to. The space already felt thin, not empty, but charged. "I shouldn't feel like this," I said quietly. "Neither should I." "But we do." He nodded slowly. "Yeah, we do." It wasn't lust, not in the typical sense. It wasn't about desire for bodies. It was about presence, the weight of being seen, heard, felt. "Noah," I said softly, "you do realize how complicated this is. My husband is your uncle." "I know." His voice didn't waver. "But this isn't about him." I looked at him, angry and relieved all at once. "But it has to be," I replied, "because if we let this turn into something more, it will destroy whatever's left of who I've tried to be." Noah leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees again, just like that morning. "I'm not asking you to run away with me, Elena," he said. "I'm not even asking you to choose me. He paused, swallowed. "I just don't want to lie about how this feels." My hand was resting on my thigh, fingers curled. His hand, warm and steady, moved toward mine again. This time, when his fingers brushed mine, I didn't pull away. But I didn't hold on either. "I want to know you," he said, "not as someone I visited when I was younger, not as my uncle's wife, just you." A long silence. "I don't even remember the last time someone said that to me," I whispered, not with that much honesty. He looked at me, eyes clear. "That's probably the saddest thing you've ever said." His hand covered mine gently, not claiming, just acknowledging. My chest rose slowly, like my body was finally exhaling after years of pretending it didn't need to. I turned to him. Our faces were inches apart now, the kind of closeness that happens by accident when no one moves away. And I thought, this is the moment everything will either begin or end. My heartbeat echoed like a drum in my ears. I felt the warmth of his breath on my cheek. I could have leaned in, but I didn't. Instead, I whispered, if we cross this line, we won't be able to go back. Noah closed his eyes for a second, then opened them again, gaze unwavering. I'm already past it, Elena. I stood up. My legs shook slightly. I can't, I said, not even sure if I meant I couldn't go forward or couldn't walk away. He didn't stop me, didn't plead. I went to the kitchen, poured a glass of water with trembling hands, and stared out the window at the lightning streaking across the lake sky. When I turned around, Noah was still on the couch, his head in his hands. We had done nothing, and yet everything had changed. The next morning, I moved like a ghost through the kitchen. The sun was out now, betraying the storm from the night before. The clouds had retreated, but inside me, everything still felt unsettled. Noah came in quietly. He looked older somehow, not just tired, but weathered, like something inside him had shifted too. Coffee? I asked. He nodded. Please. We didn't talk while it brewed. The smell filled the space between us again, like the day before. But this time, it wasn't comforting. It was heavy, because we both knew we had come dangerously close to letting something happen we couldn't take back. He sat at the table while I stood across from him. Our eyes didn't meet, but the silence said more than any apology could. I'm sorry, he said finally. For what? I asked. For wanting something I shouldn't. I shook my head. No, don't apologize for feeling something real. He looked up. Then what should I apologize for? For making me want to forget everything I know is right. There was no anger, no blame, just truth unpolished and painfully honest. You didn't do anything wrong, I said softly, and neither did I. He nodded. But we were about to. I swallowed hard. Yes, and that's why it has to stop here. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He simply nodded, his expression calm but distant, like someone pulling back from the edge of something beautiful and dangerous. Do you regret it? He asked quietly. No, I said, and I meant it. But I would have if we'd gone further. He smiled faintly. That's the difference between you and most people. You stop before the damage. I walked to the window and looked out at the lake. Still, perfect. A reflection of things untouched. I've already done damage, I whispered. Maybe not to my marriage, but to myself. Because now I know what I've been missing. Noah stood up, walked toward the hallway to pack his things. Will you tell him? He asked. I shook my head. No, not because I'm hiding, but because nothing happened. A pause. But it almost did, he added. Yes, I said. And sometimes, almost is worse. He left before noon. No long goodbyes. Just a quiet take care at the doorway, and one last look that lingered a little too long. After the door closed, I stood in the silence of the house. The rooms felt emptier now, but lighter too, like I had let go of something I never really held in the first place. That night, I lay in bed and thought about how close I had come to stepping off the edge, not because of lust, but because someone had looked at me and truly seen me not as a wife, not as a hostess, not as an obligation, as a woman. But being seen isn't the same as being saved. And not every connection, no matter how deep, how rare, how honest, is meant to be acted on. 3 days passed. My husband returned from Chicago with that same distracted energy he always carried. After business trips, polite, tired, disconnected. We ate dinner together without talking about much. I asked about his meetings. He answered in short, vague sentences. I smiled in the right places, pretended everything was normal. But I wasn't the same anymore. I couldn't be. Noah didn't text, didn't call. And I didn't reach out either. Not because I didn't want to, but because I knew if I did, something innocent would no longer be innocent. Because that's the thing about emotional affairs. They don't need bodies to betray. They just need attention and consistency and someone choosing you in quiet moments when someone else should have. And I had already chosen wrong, even if just in silence, even if only in my heart. One night, my husband and I sat on the back porch, watching the sun dip into the lake like we used to when we first moved here. I asked him, "When did we stop talking about anything real?" He looked at me like he didn't understand the question. But he didn't answer, just went back to his phone. And I knew whatever had happened between Noah and me wasn't the real betrayal. The real betrayal was how long I had been lonely in my own marriage without saying a word. But even that didn't justify what I almost did. Even if we hadn't kissed, even if our hands had only lingered, not clasped, even if the words never turned to action, my heart had leaned in too far, and I had no right to pretend otherwise. Weeks passed. Noah never came back. I sometimes thought about messaging him. Not to rekindle anything, just to say thank you. Thank you for seeing me, for reminding me I was still a woman beneath the wife, still alive beneath the habit, still capable of feeling something. But I didn't write. Because some things, no matter how honest, need to end in silence. I eventually told my husband I wasn't happy. He looked surprised, as if it had never crossed his mind. We talked, or tried to. It didn't fix everything, but at least we stopped pretending. And I realized something. Infidelity doesn't always start with sex. It starts with absence, with forgetting to show up, with being too quiet for too long. If you've ever stood on that edge, between right and wrong, between need and loyalty, between love and attention, you know how easy it is to tell yourself, this doesn't count, nothing happened. But something did happen. Inside you, and those are the hardest betrayals to confess. So if you've ever been there, if you've ever almost crossed a line and then stepped back, you didn't fail. You grew. You remembered that love is not just about what you feel in the moment. It's about what you choose in the quiet after. And sometimes, the most honest love story is the one you never let begin.